Welcome to a Founders Live Influencer series. My name is Eric Schudiske. I'm the founder of S2S Public Relations. You can find me at Eric with a C at s2spr.com. This is the second series in what will be a year-long installment of PR for startups. I want to review the first series, which is the 3 things that startups should do right now in terms of PR, before we get to our topic at hand, which is navigating PR crises from ransomware to product failure. And I'll give you the infrastructure of how you can begin to tackle those crises. But first, I want to thank our video partner, which is Schudiske, the Aussie startup, which is coming ashore in the US here in Seattle now. You can check them out at schudiske.com. All right. A little bit about me before we begin as to why I'm standing here. I grew up in television news, spent more than a decade covering stories and telling stories for companies, including tech companies, around the news, and then moved in-house to a tech company that was global, doing their PR and social, to a big box PR firm, and now out on my own, and here to help you navigate public relations. So let's dig into our first crisis situation. So as we navigate crisis situation, I want to begin with a theme and a quote. But before I get there, let's back up a little bit into the 3 things you need to begin to do right now as a startup. And this will be real quick. So you want to set alerts on yourself, your brand, and your competition, so you begin to learn a little bit about them. You want to publish an is opinion piece, which is something along the lines of, my product is the next generation of X. You want to publish that on Medium, LinkedIn, and your blog if you have one, and begin to track media who cover your realm and influencers. And this will make the job so much easier for someone like myself who will come in and take the reins of PR down the road for you. So that's the recap of what you should be doing right now. The theme and the quote for navigating a PR crisis in tech. Here's a quote. A lie gets halfway around the world before the truth has a chance to get its pants on. That quote was said about 80 years ago by Winston Churchill. Imagine the speed of that scenario now. So that's a quote. Our theme is we'll want to control the narrative. You're going to want to define the story of what is this crisis. And that'll be our task as we begin to unravel a crisis, is make sure that we're the ones defining the narrative, not our audience or hackers, but we're defining that crisis. So it can be a little tricky. So I want to give you 3 crisis takeaways to help you build that infrastructure on how to deal with a tech PR crisis. The first one sounds easy, pretty difficult. You have to agree on what is a crisis. Is this a crimp in your financial hose, so you're not receiving payments? Is this your website has been taken over by ransomware? Is this now the emerging fear of not ransomware, but extortion, where hackers have stolen some of your intellectual property and threatened to expose it and are trying to extort tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars from you? So is that a crisis? Is it a CEO indiscretion or a CEO departure that's sudden and is upsetting your board? You have to really decide what is a crisis and at what level does it rate and what response does it require. You'll then need to identify a single individual who will be guiding you through this crisis. They need to be agile, they need to be connected with the right people, and need to have their finger on your Twitter feed. Also, finally, we'll talk you through pre-positioning a holding statement. And this is a statement that you can write right now, and we'll give you the keys to do that, so that when a crisis hits, you have a statement ready to send out and let people know that you understand there's a crisis and you're dealing with it. So let's get into that first identifier. What is a crisis? Now, you're going to have to frame this discussion. I come a little bit out of the IT world. So it's important to remember that an IT issue is really a business issue. If your site is out, this is a business issue. So to elevate issues that affect you business-wide and aren't just cloistered in your IT department. And any crisis really begins with just the tilt of your head. You're going to find out about this through a text or an email, and you're going to wonder, is it true? And you're going to have to begin that moment of discovery to validate whether you're actually in a crisis. Sometimes you'll know instinctually if ransomware has taken over your site, but you need to consider and sit down with the people in your team and flush out what is a crisis. And it could be self-inflicted. This could be someone from your internal department taking IP to a competitor. So think about external and internal and self-inflicted issues where maybe you brought down the site yourself. Have that discussion and know when you need to pull the fire alarm and divert your attention from your primary tasks to this very specific task. All right, that's step number one. You defined what a crisis is. Now you're going to identify that single person who's on the hook, and they're going to have a pretty robust skill set. Now they should have their finger on your Twitter feed and be able to send out updates rapidly. So you're going to have to trust them with that. And here's another hint, it's probably not your CEO, because like we saw in the Equifax crisis situation where more than 100 million people's information was stolen, the CEO issued a statement, but clearly not on the hook for guiding the crisis and trying to resolve that crisis. Designate your level of response. This person will do that. Is it something that requires a tweet? Do we need to put a banner on the homepage? Do we need to send an email to our entire email list? You're also going to need to identify all the audiences that you're speaking to. It's not just your external audience, but your internal audience is also exceptionally valuable. And what is the message to your development team if you have a development team? What is the message to your marketing team as they're trying to drive sales or lead gen? And we want to control that narrative. So this person is going to need to break the news first and begin to be comfortable with the truth that they might not know the whole truth right now, but we're doing our best to get through this crisis. And at the end of it all, as you come through this crisis, they're going to be required to write a postmortem and let people know that we can do better and here's how we're going to do better. So that single person on the hook for all those items. And here is something you can do right now, is preposition a holding statement. And a holding statement has three parts. And we're going to walk through one that you could write down right now and just have in your back pocket in case something happens. So a holding statement addresses the issue that you're having, acknowledges that you're responding to the issue, and offers people a way that they can track your response. Here's an example, and this is from Slack, which occasionally has either outages or slowdowns in their service. And this is 140 characters, a tweet they sent out. And it reads, "We know you're having a hard time connecting." So that's number one, addressing the issue. Two, we're working on it. So letting you know that they're on it and they're trying to resolve the issue. And then updates here. And then they supply a link that goes to their blog where you can track what they're doing minute by minute or hour by hour. And this brings up another point. You'll want to set an alarm so you know that you should be regularly updating your audiences, whether they're internal or external, about the status of this crisis. And throughout all of this, you'll want to stay true to your culture and tone. You'll notice that the statement from Slack was pretty casual. But if you're in the fintech world, it might be much more robust and much more professional because you're entrusted with people's money and their identity. So once you flag a crisis, the clock starts ticking and you really have about 8 to 15 minutes, really a very short window in which you need to validate that it is a crisis and roll out that holding statement. So those are your 3 steps on how you can start to build this infrastructure on dealing with a crisis. So to recap, you're going to define your very unique parameters of what defines a crisis. And this could be one of many things and will vary whether you're an app or your website or your software as a service. So define what makes a crisis for you and come to some decision as a team. And appoint one person, this is number 2, appoint one person to be on the hook. Number 4, prepare that holding statement. Be ready to respond because you're not going to have long before other people start to define what is this crisis. And here's the extra credit. You want to put all that into a physical binder because you may not have access to your website. All right, if you're watching this live, we're going to jump on and ask me anything. If you're seeing this in the recorded state, just feel free to give a shout out to Eric, E-R-I-C, at s2spr.com. Happy to advise in any way possible. Talk to you soon.